Reporter Joe Little shows why a lot of people in RVs and trailers will have to find a new place to park.
If you're living in an RV right now, this video could explain why your life is about to get a lot harder. In 2026, at least 15 laws quietly changed, and together they're dismantling RV life piece by piece. Parking rules, inspections, power hookups, even whether your RV can legally exist. None of this was voted on loudly, and once these rules hit your city, it's already too late. In 2026, updated electrical safety standards quietly took effect that fundamentally changed how 30-amp and 50-amp RVs connect to campground power systems. The stated goal is fire prevention and better load management, but the real-world impact falls hardest on older RVs built before modern surge protection, grounding standards, and arc fault expectations became common industry practice. Many campgrounds, especially those upgrading their infrastructure, are now installing new electrical pedestals with stricter automatic fault detection. These advanced systems can immediately shut off power if an RV's internal wiring does not meet updated grounding or polarity standards. RVs manufactured 10 to 20 years ago are the most affected. Owners arrive at campgrounds, plug in their rig, and the pedestal immediately trips offline, leaving them without any electrical power. The financial impact adds up extremely fast. Quality electrical adapters, surge protectors, or comprehensive electrical management systems now cost $200 to $600. And in more serious cases, full electrical panel upgrades can easily exceed $500 to $3,000. Campgrounds are not legally required to provide legacy hookups for older RVs, and many now explicitly state no guarantee of electrical compatibility in their updated 2026 policies and reservation terms. This electrical change affects far more than casual weekend travelers. Industry estimates suggest approximately 60% of RVs currently on American roads are over 10 years old, and many full-time RV residents rely on these older rigs because newer models cost $120,000 to $300,000. Losing access to electrical hookups means losing refrigeration, climate control, medical equipment power, and basic livability. As of January 1, 2026, California enacted a major land use change allowing limited, low-impact RV camping on agricultural land, including working farms and ranches. On paper, this legislation appears to expand legal places where RVs can stay. But the actual reality on the ground is considerably more complex and restrictive. The new law allows short-term RV stays explicitly tied to agritourism activities, seasonal agricultural work, or direct landowner permission. However, it also imposes strict operational caps, limited numbers of RVs permitted per parcel, short duration stays, mandatory sanitation requirements, and comprehensive local government oversight with enforcement authority. Individual counties retain the legal power to impose additional rules, permit fees, and inspection requirements. For RV residents, this creates a split outcome. In some rural areas, landowners can now legally host 2 to 5 RVs at a time, offering viable alternatives to chronically overcrowded commercial campgrounds. In other counties, local governments are using this same law to actually tighten enforcement, requiring annual permits that cost $500 to $2,000 and inspections that many small landowners simply won't pursue. This legislative change matters significantly because California has one of the largest RV dwelling populations in the entire United States, with estimates consistently exceeding 150,000 people living in vehicles statewide. Traditional RV parks throughout California are essentially full, with average monthly site rates now exceeding $1,200 to $1,800 in many regions. The 2026 shift is fundamentally structural. RV camping on farmland is now explicitly regulated through formal channels, not informally tolerated through unofficial arrangements. That legal clarity genuinely helps some RV residents, but it simultaneously gives local authorities clearer enforcement tools to shut down non-compliant stays. Ventura County, California, implemented a comprehensive new ordinance in 2026 that explicitly prohibits overnight RV parking and camping on designated rural roads near agricultural zones throughout the county. Official enforcement began January 1, 2026, accompanied by permanent installation of no overnight parking signage along affected road corridors. The stated official justification includes protecting farm access routes, reducing illegal dumping and trash accumulation, and preventing long-term encampments from forming along rural roads. The practical effect is the removal of dozens of previously tolerated roadside parking corridors that RV residents, especially agricultural workers and retirees on fixed incomes, had used for years as affordable parking alternatives. Violations carry escalating financial penalties designed to force compliance. Initial citations typically range from $75 to $150, but repeated offenses can quickly lead to vehicle towing. A single tow operation often exceeds $600, with additional daily storage fees of $75 to $100 accumulating rapidly. After a short holding period, impounded vehicles may be auctioned at public sale, even when those vehicles are someone's documented primary residence. What makes this policy change particularly severe is basic geography. Ventura County sits strategically between Los Angeles and Santa Barbara, two regions currently experiencing extreme housing shortages and skyrocketing rents. RV parks throughout the county consistently report near-zero vacancy rates, and available safe parking program alternatives are extremely limited and often waitlisted for months. This is not a symbolic or loosely enforced ban. It represents a targeted, systematic removal of RVs from rural buffer zones that previously functioned as essential overflow housing. In 2026, those parking spaces no longer exist legally anywhere in Ventura County. In 2026, cities across the United States, especially concentrated in California, significantly expanded laws that allow police and code enforcement officers to ticket, tow, or forcibly remove RVs parked on public streets, even when those vehicles remain fully registered and mechanically operable. The fundamental legal shift comes from municipalities redefining RVs as non-standard vehicles specifically for habitation purposes, legally separating them from ordinary passenger cars in updated municipal codes. This reclassification allows cities to impose targeted nighttime parking bans, strict length restrictions, and explicit habitation prohibitions without appearing to ban vehicle parking outright. Enforcement windows typically focus on overnight hours, usually 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., directly targeting people sleeping inside parked RVs. Individual citations commonly range from $50 to $250 per night, and accumulating multiple violations can quickly trigger expensive vehicle towing and impoundment. The affected population scale is genuinely large. Current estimates suggest over 900,000 Americans now live in RVs nationwide, with many forced into vehicle dwelling because apartment rents rose 20 to 40% since 2020, while wages remained largely stagnant. Cities actively enforcing these expanded laws frequently lack sufficient emergency shelter capacity or safe parking program alternatives, leaving displaced RV residents with absolutely no legal parking options. The substantive 2026 change is not about newly emerging homelessness. It's about systematically removing previous tolerance. What was once selectively enforced through occasional warnings is now routine, increasingly automated through license plate readers and driven by explicit municipal policy directives. For hundreds of thousands of Americans, these expanded enforcement policies eliminate the last remaining legal space to simply exist overnight. In 2026, many municipalities nationwide significantly expanded their legal definition of inoperable or unsafe RVs, allowing immediate removal based primarily on exterior condition rather than actual drivability. An RV can now be legally tagged and towed even when it runs perfectly, drives normally, and maintains current registration. Common removal triggers now include cracked windows, visible exterior body damage, water leak stains, expired safety inspections, non-factory modifications or additions, or general age-related deterioration. Once officially tagged by code enforcement, owners typically receive only 24 to 72 hours to completely correct identified issues or physically move the RV elsewhere, an impossible timeline for people actively living inside with jobs and obligations. Financial consequences escalate extremely quickly under these policies. Standard tow fees typically range from $400 to $800. Daily storage charges add $50 to $100 per day. Administrative penalties and processing fees add another $100 to $300 after 30 to 60 days. In impound, some jurisdictions gain legal authority to auction or destroy the RV entirely, even when it clearly serves as someone's documented home. Vehicle owners remain legally liable for all unpaid fees regardless. This policy change disproportionately affects older RVs, which comprise the overwhelming majority of rigs owned by low-income and fixed-income households nationwide. With replacement costs for even used RVs now exceeding $80,000 to $150,000, Losing an existing RV to impound often means instant homelessness with zero housing alternatives. The substantive 2026 shift centers on enforcement discretion. Municipal authorities no longer need to prove actual mechanical failure, only visual deterioration or minor regulatory noncompliance to justify removal. In 2026, numerous local governments formally tightened legal time limits for RV stays, especially on private land and in semi-rural areas throughout the country. What fundamentally changed is not just the duration limit itself, but how aggressively these restrictions are now being enforced. New municipal ordinances now explicitly define RV occupancy beyond short durations as a serious zoning violation, even when the property landowner gives explicit written permission. Common newly imposed limits include 14, 21, or 30 total days per calendar year, after which the RV must physically leave the property entirely for extended periods. Some jurisdictions now require annual parking permits, scheduled inspections, and associated fees, ranging from $250 to over $1,000. Financial fines for noncompliance often start at $50 to $100 per day and can escalate rapidly with repeated violations. This legislative shift matters significantly because RV living has increasingly become a critical fallback housing option for working Americans. Since 2020, apartment rents have risen 20 to 40% nationally, while affordable housing construction has badly lagged behind population growth. Many families and individuals turned to RVs as a temporary housing solution, only to discover that temporary is now legally capped at extremely short durations. What makes the 2026 shift particularly serious is new legal clarity. Local governments systematically rewrote zoning definitions, so RVs are no longer considered acceptable long-term dwellings under health or zoning codes, regardless of sanitation hookups or utility connections. Once officially reclassified, enforcement becomes legally mandatory for code officers, not discretionary. For families, seniors, and working people using RVs to stay financially afloat, these new time limits convert a flexible housing option into a countdown clock, with escalating fines attached. In 2026, Malaysia implemented a comprehensive nationwide licensing and permit framework specifically for RV tourism, marking one of the most restrictive RV policy shifts anywhere outside North America. The new mandatory rules require RV operators, both commercial tour companies and certain categories of private users, to meet stringent roadworthiness inspections, safety certifications, and updated registration standards before operating legally on Malaysian roads. While this development may initially seem geographically distant and irrelevant, the underlying policy actually reflects a growing global trend. National governments formally regulating RV use rather than allowing informal recreational travel. Under Malaysia's new system, RVs used for tourism purposes must pass comprehensive inspections covering braking systems, electrical safety, emissions standards, and sanitation, with operating licenses renewed periodically. Compliance costs add up extremely quickly. Initial inspection and certification expenses can easily exceed $1,000 to $3,000, depending on modifications required to meet standards. Operators failing official inspections face substantial fines, vehicle impoundment, or outright operating bans. Even private owners occasionally renting RVs casually can be legally classified as commercial operators under the new regulatory definitions. The broader lesson matters significantly for RV residents everywhere. As RV use grows globally, national governments are increasingly treating RVs as regulated transport and lodging businesses, not simply personal recreational vehicles. What Malaysia enacted in 2026 directly mirrors policy proposals currently being discussed in Europe, Australia, and parts of North America. The fundamental shift signals that RV freedom is systematically shrinking worldwide, not through overnight blanket bans, but through layered compliance requirements that steadily raise costs and regulatory barriers until casual RV living becomes financially impractical for average people. In 2026, the practical impact of advanced clean trucks regulations became completely unavoidable for the entire RV manufacturing industry. These environmental rules require commercial vehicle manufacturers to progressively increase zero emissions vehicle production, indirectly but severely affecting gas and diesel motorhome chassis availability. RV builders rely heavily on a very small number of specialized chassis suppliers for drivable platforms. As those manufacturers redirect limited production capacity to meet mandatory electric vehicle quotas, significantly fewer traditional RV-capable gas and diesel chassis are being produced. The immediate result is widespread shortages, extended delays, and rapidly rising prices, especially concentrated in states adopting ACT standards early. Industry estimates show new motorhome prices increasing 10 to 20%, driven almost entirely by limited chassis supply rather than consumer demand. Some RV manufacturers have already paused or discontinued certain popular models entirely due to chassis uncertainty. Prospective buyers now face wait times of 12 to 24 months for new units, pushing many toward already stretched used RV markets. This supply disruption matters critically because used RV inventory is already stretched extremely thin nationwide. The average age of RVs currently on American roads now exceeds 10 years, and replacement options are increasingly unaffordable for average buyers. For full-time RV residents, a major mechanical breakdown that once meant expensive repair now increasingly risks permanent displacement and homelessness. The substantive 2026 change isn't a direct RV ban. It's a supply bottleneck. By constraining chassis availability upstream through environmental regulations, ACT rules fundamentally reshape the entire RV market indirectly, making RV ownership progressively harder without ever explicitly targeting recreational vehicles directly. In 2026, a rapidly growing number of campground operators nationwide began actively participating in shared digital databases, tracking problem guests. These information systems allow individual parks to permanently flag RV residents for unpaid fees, property damage, or alleged rule violations, and share that enforcement information across multiple campground locations. There is no single unified national registry, but regional and private campground networks are expanding these databases quickly. Once officially flagged in the system, an RV resident may be automatically denied future reservations without explanation. There is often no formal appeal process, and mistakes or false reports can follow people indefinitely across states. This enforcement shift matters significantly because campground access is already severely limited. With long-term RV sites chronically scarce and nightly rates rising sharply, often $60 to $120 per night, being blacklisted can completely eliminate the last remaining legal places to stay. Full-time RV residents are especially vulnerable as they rely on repeated access to the same campground networks for housing stability. What fundamentally changed in 2026 is normalization. Sharing guest behavior data moved from informal phone calls between friendly campground owners to structured digital systems, often tied directly to online booking platforms. Privacy protections are minimal, and enforcement standards vary widely between networks. For RV residents, a single billing dispute, missed payment, or noise complaint can now quietly close reservation doors nationwide, without warning, explanation, or appeal. The system operates largely invisibly until someone discovers they're suddenly unable to book sites anywhere. This creates a shadow enforcement system where RV residents can lose housing access without ever facing formal charges. In 2026, local governments across the entire United States significantly accelerated adoption of RV-specific parking restrictions, even outside traditional hotspot states like California. These new ordinances include overnight parking bans, length-based exclusions, and permit zones that effectively exclude RVs from legal parking. Many ordinances rely on vehicle length thresholds, typically 22 to 25 feet, which automatically disqualify most motorhomes and travel trailers. Other restrictions prohibit habitation outright, regardless of whether parking itself remains technically legal. Financial fines commonly range from $50 to $300 per night, with vehicle towing deployed as a standard escalation tool. The cumulative impact compounds extremely quickly. RV residents are forced into constant movement between locations, increasing monthly fuel costs by 15 to 30%, accelerating mechanical wear and expensive repairs, and severely disrupting employment stability, children's schooling, and medical care access. For those living paycheck to paycheck, this enforced instability is genuinely devastating. What makes the 2026 wave different from previous years is coordination. Cities are systematically copying ordinance language from each other, creating regional no-parking corridors that leave RV residents with nowhere legal to go within entire metropolitan areas. This isn't one isolated law, it's a recognizable pattern. By 2026, RV parking is no longer a gray area subject to officer discretion. It's being deliberately engineered out of urban life through coordinated policy. For hundreds of thousands of Americans living in RVs, these expanding restrictions don't just create inconvenience, They eliminate the basic ability to legally exist in public space overnight. In 2026, states nationwide began actively enforcing RV size, weight, and height restrictions that previously existed mostly on paper in transportation codes for decades. While these limits technically existed, enforcement was historically inconsistent. That changed dramatically as cities and states deployed automated traffic cameras, roadside sensors, and targeted traffic stops specifically for oversized vehicles. Common legal thresholds include length limits of 22 to 30 feet on local roads, height limits of 13 feet 6 inches under bridges and overpasses, and weight caps tied to axle ratings. Large Class A, motorhomes, and long fifth-wheel trailers are the most affected. Violations can trigger fines ranging from $150 to $1,000, forced rerouting, or being ordered completely off the road. The practical ripple effects are genuinely serious. Required detours increase fuel usage by 10 to 25%, while restricted access can completely cut RV residents off from hospitals, job sites, or campgrounds located on controlled roads. In mountainous or coastal regions, alternate legal routes may not exist at all. What fundamentally changed in 2026 is enforcement priority. Transportation agencies now treat oversized RVs similarly to commercial trucks, citing infrastructure protection and public safety. RV residents who carefully planned routes based on years of past tolerance are now discovering entire road corridors are legally closed to them. This enforcement shift disproportionately impacts older and lower-income RV owners who cannot easily downsize or replace their existing rigs. For many, their current RV represents their only housing, purchased years ago when they could still afford it. In 2026, states adopting California-style environmental rules significantly expanded emissions labeling and compliance requirements for RV engines, particularly diesel motorhomes. While RVs are not directly banned from roads, failure to meet documentation or labeling standards can completely block vehicle registration or resale. New requirements include verified emissions labels, engine family documentation, and compliance with updated testing thresholds in certain states. For used RVs, especially those built before 2010 to 2012 emissions changes, proper documentation is often missing or incomplete. The financial burden can be extremely steep. Emissions-related repairs or retrofits can cost $2,000 to $10,000, while non-compliant RVs may be denied registration outright by state motor vehicle departments. Sellers face rapidly shrinking markets as buyers actively avoid RVs that may be difficult to title. This matters critically because diesel pushers and large motorhomes dominate the full-time RV market. Many owners rely on them because they are extremely durable and already paid off. Losing registration eligibility effectively strands these RVs. The substantive 2026 change isn't a single federal law, it's the geographic expansion of enforcement zones. As more states align with stricter emissions frameworks, RV ownership becomes geographically limited, reducing mobility and resale value overnight. For RV residents, this creates a dangerous situation. An RV that's legal in one state may become illegal simply by crossing state lines. What was once a mobile housing solution becomes trapped by regulations. The emissions shift quietly converts RVs from nationwide housing into regionally restricted assets. In 2026, several states expanded or introduced mandatory safety inspections specifically for RVs, completely separate from standard vehicle inspections. These comprehensive checks go far beyond lights and brakes, covering electrical systems, propane lines, plumbing, and braking performance. Inspection failures can result in registration denial until all repairs are completed. Costs vary widely. Inspections range from $100 to $300, while required repairs often exceed $1,000 to $5,000, especially for older RVs. This change impacts older rigs most severely. Industry estimates suggest over 60% of RVs on the road are more than 10 years old, many owned by retirees or fixed-income households. What once passed informal checks now fails formal inspection standards. The stated justification is safety, but the timing matters critically. With housing costs soaring and RV living increasing, inspections act as a financial gatekeeper, determining who can legally remain mobile. In 2026, inspections are no longer rare or optional. They are becoming a condition of registration, quietly raising the minimum cost of RV ownership and pushing marginal owners out. As solar and lithium battery systems exploded in popularity, 2026 brought new safety standards governing installation and certification. RVs with aftermarket lithium systems must now meet UL certification and labeling requirements in many jurisdictions and campgrounds. Non-compliant systems can lead to denied campground hookups, failed inspections, or insurance coverage disputes. Retrofitting to compliant components often costs with $500 to $4,000, depending on system size. This matters because lithium upgrades became common survival tools, powering refrigeration, medical devices, and climate control. Many full-time RV residents installed systems themselves over the last 5 years, often without anticipating future compliance rules. The 2026 shift formalizes what was once DIY territory. Campgrounds and insurers increasingly demand proof of compliance to reduce fire risk. RV residents without documentation are being turned away. This change doesn't ban solar. It professionalizes it, raising costs and creating barriers for low-budget RV residents who relied on self-installed systems to remain off-grid. In 2026, at least one U.S. state implemented enhanced training or certification requirements for drivers towing large RVs or operating heavy motorhomes. These rules target rigs above specific weight thresholds or those equipped with air brakes. Requirements may include additional testing, coursework, or endorsements. Costs range from $200 to over $1,000, depending on training depth. Failure to comply can result in citations or insurance complications after accidents. This reflects a growing concern. RV accidents involving oversized rigs are increasing as more inexperienced drivers enter RV living due to housing pressure. Rather than improving infrastructure, states are shifting responsibility to drivers. The change matters because RV driving was historically treated like standard passenger vehicle operation. In 2026, that assumption is fading. RVs are increasingly treated as specialty vehicles, with higher expectations and barriers. By 2026, many jurisdictions explicitly folded RV living into anti-camping and homelessness enforcement laws. RVs are no longer treated as vehicles first, but as mobile encampments subject to relocation orders. Penalties include fines, mandatory move-along orders, vehicle seizures, and bans from entire districts. In many cities, enforcement occurs even when no shelter beds are available. RV residents face constant displacement. This matters because an estimated 900,000-plus Americans live in vehicles, many employed and paying taxes. RV living became a housing substitute, as rents climbed 30 to 40% since 2020. The 2026 shift is ideological. RV living is no longer tolerated as a gray area solution. It is increasingly framed as a problem to be removed. For many, losing an RV doesn't mean inconvenience. It means instant homelessness with no fallback. This isn't about RVs anymore. It's about who still gets to exist quietly in this country. In our next video, we're breaking down where RV living is being shut down next and which cities are closest to total enforcement. You do not want to miss it. If you're seeing these changes where you live, tell us what's happening in your area in the comments. And if you want to stay ahead of what's coming instead of reacting too late, make sure you're subscribed.